The rain hit hard against the windshield, a relentless curtain that made it nearly impossible for Bradley to see the road. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel, heart racing. But not just from the weather. An overwhelming pressure was building in his chest, a sensation he couldn't shake off. At first, he ignored it, chalking it up to a stressful day at the office. But when the pain intensified, sharp and unrelenting, his vision blurred and panic set in. This couldn't be happening, not to him, not now. Bradley tried to pull over, barely managing to guide the car to the side of the road before the world around him tilted. His body went limp, collapsing against the steering wheel, the car's horn blaring into the night. His consciousness flickered in and out, but just before he blacked out completely, a faint figure appeared at his window. "Sir! Sir!" A woman's voice pierced the storm, her dark hands banging against the glass. He tried to focus, but everything was slipping away. Amelia, a woman who had been walking the cold, rain-soaked streets for hours, spotted the erratic car just as Bradley lost control. Instinct took over. She ran toward the vehicle, heart pounding. As she peered inside, she saw the man's head slumped forward, his skin pale, lips turning blue. "Hang on," she muttered under her breath, her fingers trembling as she yanked the door open. Years ago, she'd been a nurse. But that was another life, one she had long abandoned when the world turned against her. Now it was all coming back, muscle memory guiding her actions as she checked for a pulse. He was fading fast. Without a second thought, Amelia dragged him out of the car, her thin arms struggling under his weight. As soon as his limp body hit the wet ground, she began CPR. The rain soaked them both, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. She pressed down hard on his chest, praying with each compression that he would breathe again. And then, a gasp. Bradley's chest heaved as he gulped in air, eyes fluttering open. "You're going to be okay," Amelia panted, relief washing over her. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air, but all Bradley could focus on was the face of the woman hovering above him. Who was she? And why did her presence feel so familiar? Bradley lay on the hospital bed, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, though his mind was anything but at rest. The sterile white walls around him did little to calm the storm of thoughts that swirled in his head. The heart attack had been unexpected, a reminder that even someone as powerful as he was not invincible. And yet, through the fog of pain and fear, one thing remained clear. He owed his life to a stranger. The door creaked open, and his wife Lauren stepped in. Her face, usually poised and perfect, was strained with worry. "Bradley," she whispered, rushing to his side. "The doctor said it was close. You could've." Her voice trailed off, choking on the word "died." "I know," Bradley muttered, his hand instinctively touching his chest where the ache still lingered. "But I didn't." His voice was firm. He didn't like to dwell on weakness, least of all his own. "Who found you?" "The police said someone pulled you from the car," Lauren asked, her brows furrowing. Bradley's mind flashed to the woman, Amelia. Her dark, worn face, soaked in rain, had been the last thing he saw before he passed out. "A woman," he said slowly. "I didn't get her name. She saved me." Lauren blinked, processing the information. Before she could respond, a knock interrupted them. The doctor entered, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Colburn, you're lucky to be alive. We've got your results, and we need to discuss some lifestyle changes. But first, there's someone here to see you." Bradley's eyes narrowed. "Who?" The doctor stepped aside, and in walked Amelia, her clothes still damp, her eyes shadowed with wariness. She looked entirely out of place in the pristine hospital room, her coat frayed at the edges, her shoes worn down from miles of walking. But there was something in her posture, quiet strength, that caught Lauren's attention immediately. "That's her," Bradley said, straightening up in bed. "She's the one who saved me." Amelia gave a tight nod, hands tucked awkwardly into her pockets. "I didn't want to bother you, but I wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm glad you pulled through." "Wait," Lauren interjected, eyeing the woman with suspicion. "Who exactly are you? And why were you there when my husband—" "I was walking," Amelia interrupted, her voice calm but firm, "just passing by when I saw him." Bradley raised a hand to stop his wife's questioning. "Thank you. I owe you my life. Please, sit down." Amelia hesitated. She wasn't used to being invited into places like this, warm, clean spaces filled with people who lived entirely different lives from hers. But she sat, stiffly, as if at any moment someone would realize she didn't belong. "What were you doing out there?" Lauren pressed, her voice growing colder. "You don't look like someone who just wanders around that part of town." Amelia's gaze flickered, a flash of something hidden beneath the surface, but she masked it quickly. "I've been on the streets for a while. Life hasn't exactly been kind to me recently." Lauren recoiled slightly, disgust mixing with pity, but Bradley's eyes softened. "Tell me more. How did you know what to do? You saved my life like you'd done it before." Amelia glanced at her hands, rough and calloused from years of survival. "I used to be a nurse a long time ago, but things change." Before Bradley could pry further, his phone buzzed on the table next to him. He picked it up, eyes widening as he read the screen. It was a message from his father-in-law, Harold. The man was a giant in the business world, a shark with a ruthless reputation. "Call me immediately," the message read. Urgent. He set the phone down, feeling the weight of it like an anchor pulling him back into the chaos of his old life. But here, in this moment, he wasn't thinking about deals or profits. He was thinking about the woman in front of him and the strange familiarity she carried. There was something he couldn't place, something off, but he couldn't grasp it just yet. The doctor interrupted their conversation, ushering Amelia out. "You need to rest, Mr. Colburn. We'll continue this tomorrow." As Amelia left, she glanced over her shoulder at Bradley one last time. Her heart pounded, her instincts telling her she had lingered too long. He can't know the truth, she thought. Not yet. The next morning, Amelia woke in the shelter where she'd been staying. It wasn't much, a cot and a thin blanket, but it was better than the streets. As she washed her face in the cracked mirror, her reflection stared back, reminding her of all she had lost. Her husband, her daughter, her home. All gone because of a single man's greed. Her thoughts wandered back to Bradley, lying in that hospital bed, unaware of the connection that tied them together. It was ironic, really. He was the son-in-law of the man who had destroyed her life, and now she had saved his. As she left the shelter and wandered through the streets, memories of her old life flooded back. Her husband had been a good man, hardworking and honest, but he had trusted the wrong people. Harold, Bradley's father-in-law, had framed him in a corporate scandal, leaving them penniless, ruining their reputations. Amelia had fought for years to clear her husband's name, but no one believed her. Eventually, she lost everything, including her daughter, who had been taken away by the state. Now she lived with nothing but the weight of that injustice. But fate, it seemed, had a strange way of circling back. Back at the hospital, Bradley scrolled through his phone, ignoring the string of messages from Harold. Something about Amelia kept tugging at him. He needed answers. He needed to know more about this woman who had come into his life at the exact moment he needed her most. Later that day, he sent her a text. "I want to help you. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. at my office." Amelia stared at the message on her phone, her heart pounding in her chest. "Help me?" She nearly laughed at the absurdity of it. But a part of her, the part that still held a glimmer of hope, responded, "I'll be there." The wind howled as Amelia stood outside Bradley's office building, staring up at the towering glass structure. It was a world so far from hers now, a place of power and privilege, where decisions were made that changed the lives of people like her, without a second thought. She clutched her coat tighter around her thin frame and took a deep breath. "This is for my daughter," she reminded herself. "I need to see this through." When she entered the sleek, marble-lined lobby, she felt the eyes of the receptionist on her, scrutinizing her ragged clothes, but Amelia ignored the discomfort. She was used to it by now. As she stepped into the elevator, a sense of dread filled her chest. She was walking into the lion's den. Bradley was waiting for her in his corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. He rose when she entered, his expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming," he said, motioning for her to sit. Amelia remained standing. "What do you want from me, Bradley?" He hesitated, unsure of how to approach the conversation. "I want to help you, Amelia. After everything you did for me, I can't just ignore what you've been through. You saved my life, and I need to know what I can do for you." Amelia's eyes hardened. "Help me? People like you don't help people like me. What do you think you can possibly offer?" Bradley felt a pang of guilt but pressed on. "I know you used to be a nurse. I can help you get back on your feet. A job, housing, whatever you need to get your life back. Amelia shook her head, laughing bitterly. My life? My life was stolen from me, Bradley, and no amount of charity is going to fix that. Bradley's brow furrowed. He had suspected that there was more to her story, but her words hit him harder than he expected. Stolen? What do you mean? She hesitated, her throat tightening as the memories clawed at her. Part of her wanted to walk out, leave him in the dark, but another part, maybe the part that had fought for so long, needed him to know. Your father-in-law, Harold, she began, her voice low but steady. He's the one who ruined my family. My husband was a good man, but Harold framed him in a corporate scandal years ago. We lost everything because of him. And when I tried to fight back, no one would listen. We lost our home, our money, and worst of all, I lost my daughter. She was taken from me because we were poor and broken. Your father-in-law did that, and now you want to help me? Her voice cracked with emotion.
Hey there, quick message. Grab a paper, write down HeroKind Stories, our channel name. Come back soon, we've got incredible stories you won't want to miss.
Bradley froze. The words hit him like a sledgehammer. Harold? The man who had mentored him, guided him in the ruthless world of business? Bradley had always known Harold had a reputation for playing dirty, but this? Destroying a family? Taking a child from her mother? It was too much to wrap his head around. No, that can't be true, Bradley whispered, more to himself than to Amelia. But deep down, he knew it was possible. His mind raced through the years of deals, the whispers of Harold's methods, the things he had willfully ignored because it was easier than facing the truth. Amelia watched the realization dawn on him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had carried this weight for so long, and now, standing in front of Harold's son-in-law, she felt both relief and fear. It's true, Bradley. He destroyed us. My husband didn't deserve any of it, but Harold needed a scapegoat, and we were easy targets. Bradley stood up, pacing the room, his mind reeling. I don't know what to say. He looked at her, desperation in his eyes. But I swear, I didn't know. Amelia's voice softened, though the pain still lingered in every word. I believe you, but believing won't bring back what I lost. There was a long, tense silence between them. Bradley stopped pacing and faced her. What do you want me to do? Amelia swallowed hard. She had thought about this moment for years, imagined what she would do if she ever confronted the people responsible for her suffering. But now, standing here, the anger she had clung to for so long felt hollow. What she wanted wasn't revenge. She wanted justice for her husband, for her daughter, and for herself.
Hey there, quick message. Grab a paper, write down HeroKind Stories, our channel name. Come back soon, we've got incredible stories you won't want to miss.
I want my daughter back, she said quietly, her voice firm. She's in the system now, somewhere. I've been fighting to get her back for years, but without money, without a stable home, I'm just another case file to them. Bradley nodded slowly, determination hardening in his chest. I'll help you find her. I'll make sure you get her back. And Harold, he'll have to answer for what he's done. Amelia stared at him, a flicker of hope igniting in her heart. Could he really help her? After all these years of fighting alone, could this be the break she needed? But there was no time to savor the moment. She knew too well how quickly things could fall apart. Just as she was about to speak, Bradley's phone rang. He glanced at it. Harold's name flashed on the screen. His stomach twisted. I have to take this, he said, stepping aside to answer the call. The moment he picked up, Harold's booming voice filled the room. Bradley, you need to stop whatever you're doing with that woman. I've heard she's been around you, and let me tell you, she's trouble. Stay away from her, and let me handle it. Bradley's blood ran cold. Harold knew. And more than that, he was trying to cover it up. What did you do to her, Harold? Bradley asked, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. I did what I had to do. You don't understand how the world works yet, Bradley. Sacrifices have to be made to keep things running smoothly. Her husband was a nobody, and she was collateral damage. Bradley's grip tightened on the phone. Collateral damage? She's a human being, Harold. You destroyed her life, and now you want me to just look the other way? That's exactly what I'm asking you to do. You owe me, Bradley. I made you who you are today, and if you want to keep everything you've worked for, you'll listen to me. Bradley hung up the phone, his hands shaking. He turned back to Amelia, his decision clear. "I'm not going to look the other way," he said, his voice steady. "We're going to fight this, together." Amelia's eyes welled with tears, not of sadness, but of something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Days turned into weeks as Bradley and Amelia teamed up to uncover the truth, digging through legal documents, old files, and forgotten case notes. Bradley called in favors from the best lawyers he knew, and with his resources and Amelia's determination, they worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle of her husband's downfall. Each day brought them closer to exposing Harold's deceit. But it wasn't easy. The legal system was complex, and Harold's influence ran deep. There were roadblocks at every turn, lawyers refusing to take on the case, judges who seemed less than interested in revisiting an old scandal, and Harold's constant interference, trying to discredit Amelia every chance he got. Yet, despite the odds, they pushed forward. Bradley's relationship with Lauren grew strained. She had always admired her father, and now she was caught between her loyalty to him and her love for Bradley. Tension brewed in their home, and arguments became frequent, but Bradley stood firm. He couldn't let this go, not now. One evening, Bradley sat in his office poring over the latest evidence their legal team had gathered when his phone buzzed. It was a message from Amelia. "I found her." Bradley's heart skipped a beat. He immediately called her back. "Where is she?" Amelia's voice was shaking with emotion. "She's in a foster home, just outside of town. Her name's been changed, but it's her, Bradley. I know it's her." Bradley didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and rushed out of the office, meeting Amelia at the address she had sent him. When they arrived, a small, modest home stood before them, the porch light flickering in the twilight. Amelia stood frozen, staring at the house. Her breath was shallow, and her hands trembled. "This is it," she whispered. Bradley put a hand on her shoulder. "We'll do this together." They approached the door, and after a few tense knocks, it creaked open. A kind-looking woman in her 40s answered, her eyes darting between Amelia and Bradley with curiosity. "Can I help you?" Amelia swallowed hard. I'm here to see my daughter." The woman's face softened and she opened the door wider, stepping aside. "You must be Amelia. We've been expecting you. Come in." As they walked into the cozy living room, a young girl appeared at the top of the stairs. She was about 10 years old, with large brown eyes and dark curly hair. She froze when she saw Amelia, her eyes wide with uncertainty. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. This was her daughter, the child she had lost so many years ago. "Isabella," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The girl hesitated, her eyes searching Amelia's face as if trying to remember. I go by Lily now," she said quietly. Amelia nodded, her heart breaking and swelling at the same time. "Lily," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I'm your mother." For a moment there was silence, the weight of the years between them hanging heavily in the air. But then, slowly, Lily stepped forward, her small hand reaching for Amelia's. When their hands touched, it was as though all the pain and loss melted away, replaced by a fragile, tender hope. "I've waited so long for this," Amelia sobbed, pulling her daughter into her arms. Bradley watched from the side, his heart heavy with emotion. He had never witnessed a moment like this, so raw, so powerful. But he knew their fight wasn't over yet. There was still Harold to deal with. In the weeks that followed, Bradley made good on his promise. With the help of his lawyers, they filed a case against Harold, accusing him of fraud, corruption, and perjury. The media caught wind of the story, and soon, Harold's carefully constructed empire began to crumble. Lauren, torn between her father and her husband, eventually chose Bradley's side, unable to deny the overwhelming evidence of her father's guilt. The court case was long and grueling, but in the end, justice prevailed. Harold was convicted and sentenced to prison for his crimes, finally paying for the lives he had destroyed. The victory was bittersweet, but it brought Amelia the closure she had longed for. A few months later, Amelia stood outside a modest but charming little house, her new home. Thanks to Bradley's help, she had regained custody of Lily, and they were starting their life together, free from the shadows of the past. As she looked at the garden, where Lily played with a small puppy, she felt something she hadn't in years: peace. Bradley pulled up in his car and stepped out, his face relaxed, though the weight of the last few months still clung to him. He approached Amelia, his hands in his pockets. "How are things?" he asked, glancing at Lily with a smile. Amelia nodded, wiping away a tear. "Better. I didn't think this day would ever come." Bradley stood beside her, looking out at the scene before them. "You've earned it. You fought harder than anyone I've ever known." There was a long pause before Amelia turned to him, her voice soft. "You fought with me, Bradley. I couldn't have done this alone." He smiled, but there was a heaviness in his eyes. "I've lost a lot in this fight, too. Lauren and I—" His voice trailed off, and Amelia understood. Lauren had moved out weeks ago, unable to reconcile the father she had loved with the man he had become. "I'm sorry," Amelia said, her voice filled with empathy. Bradley shook his head. "It had to be done. For you, for Lily, for everyone Harold hurt." Amelia took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin, a symbol of the new beginning they had fought so hard to reach. "What will you do now?" Bradley looked out at the horizon, a quiet determination in his eyes. "I'll figure it out. I have to. But whatever happens, I'm glad I did the right thing." Amelia smiled, a true, genuine smile. For the first time in years, the future didn't seem so dark. "Thank you, Bradley. For everything." He nodded, the weight of the past slowly lifting off his shoulders. "Take care of her, Amelia. She's lucky to have you." As Bradley walked back to his car, Amelia watched him go, her heart filled with gratitude. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, it felt possible. If you found this story as moving as we did, be sure to hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs a little inspiration today. And if you want to see more incredible stories of resilience and love, click on the next video that's about to appear on your screen. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.